I mean, I guess we can always
The
see what
Department
this
of
is.
Agriculture is one of the many federal agencies hit by President Trump's mass layoffs. According to a number of staffers, emails started going out on Thursday without warning, leaving supervisors off guard and potentially hundreds of people without a job. Tabitha Panis is one of the many USDA employees suddenly informed their job was terminated last week, and she joins me now. Tabitha, I'm sorry we're speaking under these circumstances. I know emotionally how hard something like this can be.
So for those who don't know, the USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture, right? Their job is the nutrition of the United States. They make an attempt at ending hunger within the states, but, you know, jury's out on whether or not they actually do that job very well. And they do have a bit of bones as an environmental agency. And I think that's probably the one that we might need to be looking at here if we're taking a look at this.
And the stock you have to take. How has this process gone for you? And what are your biggest concerns now about taking care of yourself and your family?
Hi, thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me. I really appreciate your kind words. It is a very challenging time, you know. I mean, it's kind of been up and coming that our positions are not secure, but considering that, you know, the Department of Agriculture is so important to our food security and our farmers in the Midwest, I was surprised to be terminated from this position. So obviously I'm seeking different employment going forward, but, you know, still just kind of taking my time to process everything.
I mean, it makes sense that people would be getting fired out of here, considering that Trump is trying to, quote, cut government spending. But the way he's doing so is attempting to gut Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP. And notably, SNAP is actually one of USDA's programs, right? So for those who don't know, SNAP is effectively a food stamps program in the United States. We have two food stamps-ish programs here. We have more than that, but like we have two major ones that people know of. We have SNAP and we have WIC. WIC checks are generally considered the more humiliating of the two because they happen to have a lot of restrictions on what can be and cannot be gotten with them, infinitely more so than with the SNAP benefits. But have you watched Saberstart's critiques of anti-woke cartoons? A few of them? A few of them. Depraved Ambient says this is proof positive that Republicans hate children. Yeah, trying to gut SNAP benefits for SNAP-eligible families is a really shitty thing to do. It is literally taking food off the table for children. But don't worry, I guarantee you that half of those impoverished and having to, you know, use SNAP benefits are those who Trump, you know, got votes from. Lenari says, aren't they farm subsidies? That too.
I want to ask you about something that you said, because there are people who believe that the federal government does need to shrink. But can you talk to us about the work you did and why you think it's such crucial work, especially right now?
Yeah, definitely. So with USDA, I was a natural resource specialist, and I work with farmers and producers to help implement voluntary conservation practices on their land. Farmers come to...
So there's the reason why she got hit, because her specific department in the USDA was mostly built around environmental protection, which is something that Trump has been trying to pull us from for the last two terms he's been president. He doesn't like us being part of any type of environmental protection agency of any kind, and he definitely doesn't like our own agencies engaging in environmental protection. He claims that, oh, we can do it all on our own, but he also opposes most green forms of energy. If you've ever heard him talk about fucking windmills, it's staggering how stupid the man is.
To our office to seek out our assistance. And we work with them in their operation to help ensure that they are treating resource concerns and are profitable in doing so. So one of the biggest resource concerns we work with in the state of Iowa is soils and our...
Laura, thank you for the 300 bits. Says, sometimes I think get hit by truck kun, then isekai to another world where I'm a vending machine would be better than living in the U.S. I mean... that is a hit anime where the character did get isekai'd and woke up as a vending machine in another world. I've heard it's fantastic, but like, I'm gonna be honest, the premise hasn't ever sold me.
Our, you know, soil health concerns. We currently are in an eroding environment in the Midwest. So it was tens of thousands of years of tall grass prairies that built our super healthy topsoils in the Midwest and is what makes our agriculture so, profitable. And we are losing those when we have annual row crops on the landscape. We understand that we're losing soils. So these soil health practices like cover crops, terraces.
So the things that are actually required to maintain food prosperity in the United States. So noteworthy is the fact that the U.S., under its capitalist system, has eliminated food scarcity. Now, granted, that does not actually mean anything. The reason I say that doesn't mean anything is while we have eliminated food scarcity in terms of its availability, we have not eliminated food scarcity in terms of transportation and, well, it being affordable. When I say it's available, I mean we have enough food to feed the nation. We do. There is enough food in stores. There is enough food that is produced. There is enough food to make sure that the nation, everybody is fed. But we still have a high amount of our populace that are starving, and even if we have bits of our populace that are not starving, we have a lot of our populace that are not getting proper nutrition, and that's only going to get worse right now. Mostly because the price of food has basically doubled in the last few weeks. I went grocery shopping the other day. Eggs were $7 for a container of 12. The meat that I normally pick up was about 30% more expensive. It was just like 73 ground beef, $20 for 5 pounds of it. I'm used to that being like $12. Then you've got just everything costing more. Freaking Saki wanted Baja Blast, and apparently that's $11 for a case of 12 now, when it was $3 a handful of weeks ago, or like $4 a handful of weeks ago. It is insane to me. It is insane to me that in a country that produces as much food as we do, that we cannot have that food be affordable for American citizens. So, how do you make that food even less affordable? Well, you actually make that food scarce. How do you actually make that food scarce? You get rid of the people who are directly in charge of making sure that soil conservation efforts are maintained. And if those soil conservation efforts are no longer maintained, then the United States in general produces less food. One of the only foods, to my recollection, that we actually export is fucking corn. Nox Lupus says the slime looks dry. You should consume moisture. Gotcha. Thank you very much. I appreciate the hydrate. But regardless, you can make food a lot scarcer for people in the U.S. Now, I don't know what the fucking end game is here. I don't know what the end game is in basically making food less available to people in the U.S., not only by gouging the prices infinitely like they have been, and making it to where the people who already didn't have good nutrition, like I was alluding to before, are having to rely even more on freaking ramen noodles as their main method of nutrition. And then those people not being able to afford medical care in the United States. And then that fun cycle just constantly going forward and forward and worse and worse and worse. Where now these people are ridiculously unhealthy, can't afford to eat good nutritional food, and so can't dig themselves out of this. Man, I don't know. I don't know what the end game here is, other than having just a populace that is super dependent on government programs to survive, but they're also gutting those government programs that the populace would need. I don't know what the end game in here is. It feels like it's just chaos. Now, granted, I do kind of know what some of the end game in is for a lot of this. There's several techno-billionaires who have gone on record, at the very least millionaires, who have gone on record to state that they want the United States to be destroyed. Like, literally be destroyed, so that in the individual land, a bunch of little techno-serfdoms can be built up instead, where the people with the money and the influence are able to buy up those plots of land and basically be their own little mini kings there. Now, this is not a thing that is unique to the Republican Party. This is something the Democrats have been engaging in as well, because a lot of this started under fucking Obama. Cassidy says, I wish I could convince my father to stop fucking bullshitting conservatism as a small government. Yeah. Okay, so the only thing I can see here is that the end result is to destabilize the United States so hard that our federal government ceases to function, and then the United States populace votes against having a federal government in the first frickin' place. Destabilize it enough where you can get to those little serfdoms. There's a few other YouTubers, Wisecrack and Blonde Politics, who have talked about this whole, like, techno-serfdom phenomenon that people like Elon are desperately trying to fight for. Final Stripe says, I know this kind of content makes you upset and stuff, but listening to you explain all this is incredibly comforting to me. I appreciate that. That says something about both of our mental states, though. It really does. But that's what the end game looks like to me. If I were to try to figure out why would you get rid of our method of producing adequate food when we already can't get that food to the people who need it in the first freaking place, why would you create such animosity with the United States federal government? Why would you do all these things? The end result of all of it to me seems to be just destabilizing the U.S. enough that you can erect these little freaking techno-serfdoms. That's where my brain goes.
No-till practices are super important for our farmers, and they rely on us for that technical and financial assistance to get that done.
Wow. And Tabitha, before we let you go, this has a human toll, too. I understand that there are some questions that you have, for example, health insurance. I mean, something as simple that we take for granted. Can you elaborate on that a little bit as quickly as you can?
Yeah. I mean, the termination letter was very informal and didn't have a lot of information at all about my benefits moving forward. So I'm still working with, waiting back for an email from my HR representative to see if they can answer any of my questions in that regard.
An uncertain time. Tabitha Panis, please let us know how you're doing in a little bit. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so yeah, this is just another drop in the large bucket of issues that America is facing where we destabilize all of the foundational shit that makes our country function, even though it doesn't function very well in those capacities in the first place. That's fantastic. That's not what I wanted to see here. I literally clicked this video on a whim, and now I am sad. But what can we do about this? That's the big thing. What can we do about this? Well, unfortunately, none of us has any actual influence over who gets to keep what jobs in the federal government. We don't. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing that we can do. Because ultimately, the federal government is still made up of people. It is still made up of people that we elected into their positions. So, while we don't have an election cycle for the presidency for another 3.5 years, and while we don't have another election cycle for the House of Representatives for another 1.5 years, there are still tons of local elections that are going on in your area right now that will be up very soon. For instance, for my city, we are going to be having our elections for city councilmen and chairs all in a few months. If you want to make sure that shit like this doesn't continue to happen, the best option that we have right now is to organize from the ground up and make sure that every single position that is currently held by a Republican is at the very least fought back against by a Democrat. And while the Democrats are not a perfect solution to any of this, they're not. They are the solution that has enough backing to function. They are the solution that has enough backing to work. A scary thing that I noted every single time I've attended a meeting for the local Democratic Party here where I am, it is mostly made up of people over 60 years old. That is terrifying, and that is something that needs to change. Why does that need to change? Well, Every single person on that side of the fence of age believes that the battle that we are working on needs to be fought by just meeting your neighbors and getting to know them better. And while that is certainly an aspect of the world that we need to be focusing on, it ignores the fact that technology has atomized us so thoroughly hard that that will not work as a plan going forward. Because the right does not need that going forward. They have managed to get an entire media empire set up that works against us hard. And we need to be working on making sure that we have a similarly built media empire against them. That tool of the enemy needs to be utilized by us. And in order to get that tool of the enemy, we need to start working on getting enough people in infrastructure on the lowest levels possible of politics so that we can build up. If you don't like your representative, if you are working on the canvassing team for your local politicians, you have the ability to influence not only what representative gets hired, but also, well, elected, but you also get to influence what kinds of things they will advocate for policy-wise. If you want to change things in Congress, if you want to change things on the presidential level, you are going to need to start on the local level. So, as for what we can do about this, most of it's going to ultimately be organizing. There are links in the description to the Democratic Socialists of America. You can find a chapter near you. They can help you figure out ways that you can help out in your local area. There's also links down there to ResistBot and 5 Calls, which are both wonderful resources for getting in contact with the people who are currently your representatives. And I've advocated for this before, and I'll advocate for it again. Please go look at places like Facebook and Meet Me and Mobilize.us. They will have meeting times for your local party so that you can be in attendance and you can start getting actively involved in politics. We need more younger people in politics. We need more younger people who are willing to pry themselves away from their screens and start getting involved with the actual work of running the goddamn country. Anyway, thank you for watching. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.